Becoming a successful government contractor for services requires you to clearly understand your role. You are the key to a successful completion of every project. In this video, I want to show you step by step how you can become a very successful service government contractor. Now let's get into it. But before we do, I'm Michelle Brown, your coach and your mentor. And don't forget, you have Ask Michelle B. Just click on the link in the comment section and ask me a question. I'll talk to you soon. Step 1, how to choose the right subcontractors to win service contracts. And that starts with understanding how to choose subcontractors to help you win prime, multi-year, multi-million dollar, consistent government contracts. Step number 1 is literally how to research and vet subcontractors to actually win. You and only you are responsible for this contract. Any contract that you manage or that you decide you really want to pursue and you win, you're responsible, not your subcontractor. You are responsible. It's important that you start this process out right. It is illegal for you not to be involved in the contract. It doesn't mean you have to do the work. It just means you need to understand your role. And you understanding that you represent, as a small business, 51% of this contract is very important. So how do you do that? It's through management. Otherwise, the subcontractor and the government don't need you. So it's important for you to understand your role, and that is management. But first, you have to choose the right subcontractors. The contracting officer may never know who the subcontractor is, but I'll tell you a little secret that has been happening lately. Lately, contracting officers have been peeking into your side of the business as the prime, wondering who you're working with as a subcontractor. Why? Because people are listening to the middleman concept. There's no such thing. It's a catchy title, and yes, I like it too, but there is no middle. It is you. You are responsible. And if you remember, I've talked to you about that in previous videos, but it's important for you to understand, what is this step 1? There are other steps, but they need to be broken down. And this will be the first step, to understand how to research and vet subcontractors to win. Notice I said to win. You should not just choose any old subcontractor. These are the things you need to do. There are situations for long-term contracts where you will want to have an agreement with your subcontractor. That would be an NDA agreement, a non-disclosure agreement. That means they cannot discuss the details of your prime contract with anyone else outside of their organization. They also cannot overstep their boundaries as it relates to their roles as a subcontractor. All of that is spelled out in an NDA agreement. You also have the non-compete. There are many subcontractors out there that will figure out how to sidestep you or go behind your back to take over your contract once your contract is done. That's why you need to have these agreements in place. Although they're not required, you do need to have an understanding with your subcontractor. You should never, ever trust anyone with your company. You need to be the person to drive the situation. Also, you have the liability insurances, the liability coverages. Now, you need to have your own general liability, but the truth is, your subcontractor must have their own liability and insurances, and most of them will have the proper liability and insurance coverages that would take care of the work that they do. But you need to ask. Do not assume. Past performance is something that's important because you may need to use their past performance. Realize that the government is used to primes using subcontractors. That is not against the law. That is the only way very large primes, billion-dollar primes, win contracts. They have different subcontractors to do different parts of the work. And that could be you. That is legal. But you need to make sure that you understand and you have clarity in each of these areas. If you decide not to get an NDA or to have a non-compete, I would suggest that you reconsider the non-compete agreement at minimum, because you do not want someone trying to steal your contract and blindside you. You need to understand who you're dealing with. Liability insurances, that's a no-brainer. That is a done deal. These are the things that they must have before they begin their work. And you need to inquire about those insurances before you hire them to be a subcontractor. Past performance, that is to help you win the contract. You need to understand their work performance, their history, how much experience they have. You need to use that in your proposal. These three areas are key to your success and key to making sure that you are not set up for failure and or that you are secure as it relates to what if something happens during the work, during the project. You don't want to have to use your insurance. The first level of insurance comes from your subcontractor. You should minimize your liability completely, as much and as often as you can. These are your protection areas. Next, let's go into how you actually choose subcontractor. You are the prime, but the government is your client and they trust you. You are required to find the subcontractors, or you're to do the work yourself. The work can come directly from your company, or you can hire a subcontractor, which is perfectly legal. Again, the 51% requires you to do the management. It requires you to do all of the communications. It requires you to be in control of every aspect. That's called project management. You need to find subcontractors that you can trust to grow your successful prime government contracting enterprise. So how do you make that happen? Well, number one, communication. How you communicate with your subcontractor as a prime is key to your success. You need to have yourself together before you start contacting subcontractors. You must manage the contract. Therefore, you manage the subcontractor. You manage things like timelines. You manage the project scope. But let's talk about the timeline. What does that mean? The commitment you make to the contracting officer is the timeline that you must meet. Therefore, you must manage your subcontractor to meet that timeline. All of that is described in the scope of work. You must first understand how your subcontractor will make that happen. Staffing and work plan. Now, I realize that some terms that I use are my terms. I call it a staffing and a work plan. I want to know when I'm hiring a subcontractor, how they're going to make it happen. How are they going to meet those standards? What types of staffing do they need and do they have? What are their work hours? What are the details for how they will get this done? All of that is very, very important. And lastly, past performance and reviews. You can ask for referrals or recommendations from some of their clients. That's up to you. I realize you don't want to make this process too difficult, because if you're just starting out, you may feel as though you don't want to ask for too much because they may not want to work with you. No, it is the complete opposite. If they are annoyed, you don't want to work with them, because that tells you they don't take pride in their work and they're insecure, or they're not interested in having a partnership that will allow them to be successful in partnership with you. You don't want that relationship. This is why you need to find more than one subcontractor whenever you're considering working on a government contract. You should not have only one choice. Sometimes there is only one, but most often you can find more than one. But regardless, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Your business and your reputation is on the line. Now, how should you always research and vet your subcontractors? This is step one. The first thing you want to do is learn and research as much as you can about the service before you contact anyone. Please do not pick up the phone without reading the scope of work yourself and understanding what is required. Number two, clearly understand, just like I said, the scope of work. If you read it and you see things that you don't understand, look it up. Do more research before you contact any subcontractor. If there's a quality assurance plan that is connected to the scope of work, you need to read and understand what that means. Quality control or quality assurance means this is how you will be judged by the government, by the contracting officer. So you need to understand what those standards are so that when you communicate with prospective subcontractors, you can share that quality assurance information as part of the scope of work. You do not want them to be blindsided, and you want to make sure that they can meet the government standard. Then you need to research a number of companies for the job. I mentioned that already. Do not just start calling. Make a list of prospects before you start calling. You need to have your thoughts together. Do not just pick up the phone and start talking. You also need to document what you're finding out about these companies. Remember, this may sound like a lot of work, but it becomes part of your behavior to be a professional, to win contracts, keep your contracts, and build your multi-million-dollar enterprise. You need to understand how important it is to take these specific steps. Look up the company in USA Spending by their legal name before you contact them. So what does this mean? This means that you're using Google to research some of these companies. Go to their website, look to see if their website is professional, look to see if you can learn a little bit more about them. That could take you a few hours in a day, but this is what it takes to build a multi-million-dollar business. This is what it takes to build a $500,000 business. No matter what your goals are, this is required. And if you skip any of these steps, you will end up in a bad situation with a subcontractor. If you look in USA Spending and you find that they have a track record of winning contracts, please don't call them. Many of you will ask the question, well, what if they haven't won in a long time? If they haven't won in a long time, that may be fine. But make sure you do your homework. Make sure that you understand what you're seeing under USA Spending. If you see that they've recently won contracts within the last year, please do not call, because they will take the information and use it against you, or they could literally give you a price quote and then go and bid behind your back against you. So please pay attention. USA Spending, however, sometimes does not give you the cage code unless you know what you're looking for. That's why I want you to go and look by the company name. But if there's a way for you to actually get the cage code first and then go to USA Spending. You will still need to put in the company name. You cannot search by cage code. Also, review their website, as I mentioned earlier, to better understand what they do, to determine, do they look like a professional company? You should be judging every step of the way. There are small behaviors that will help you to understand, should I work with this person or should I not work with this person? Use your instincts. Never be desperate. Be willing to walk away from a deal if you cannot find the subcontractor that gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling about a partnership, because you will be in partnership. You want them to make money and you want to make money. On top of it, you want to do a great job for the federal government so that you can build this contracting relationship with the contracting officer. And trust me, they do call you again if they like your work. Remember, they will be representing your company. So this subcontractor will be working for you. You're not working for them. You're not partnering with them, even though I use the term partnership. Yes, it is a partnership, but you are it. You are the boss. You're the boss over the situation. Everyone will be watching you, including the subcontractor. This is still big business. This is not about one contract. This is not a side hustle. And if that's what you think, you should not do this. Have your cover story together before you contact a subcontractor. Why? I've always said this because you don't want to give all of your information away before you understand what type of company you're working with. Sometimes people want information, but they're not interested necessarily in working with you or going to the next level. You need to have your cover story together. You don't need to tell them, I do government contracts. That's not necessary. What you need to tell them is, I am interested in hiring for this type of work. Can you help me? Something like that. You need to have your cover story together. You need to have your spiel together. I'm very experienced in business and I still write down what I want to say to manufacturers, what I want to say to anyone that I plan to do business with, because I don't want to miss anything. I want to be very clear in my communication, and I want to make sure that they understand that I am in charge. They would be working for me, not for the government, not for a commercial client, but working for me, meaning they would report to me. I am the driver of this project. I am the reason that you get this contract opportunity. Keep it general. Do not tell them you're bidding on contracts. Let them know what you do in a general way, but you don't even need to mention your clients because they're working for you. It doesn't matter who your clients are. Sometimes contractors will ask or probe to find out why you're in the picture. They want to know, are you the decision maker? Now, you need to be very careful about how you answer that question. You should not discuss your government contracts. You should not tell them that you are a government contractor. You have a responsibility to help them understand that you want to hire them for their services, period. They don't need to know anything else until you tell them. This is how you stay in control, and this is how you determine who you want to work with as a subcontractor. Now, you can change up some of my pointers, and that's fine. But what you need to do is understand it is important for you to communicate effectively with these subcontractors. You are hiring them for the job, no one else. It's none of their business. It does not matter. They need to feel you already have the power. They don't need to think about who you're working for because you are the prime. That's how you do it. If you'd like a checklist of this step one subcontracting process, click on the link in the comment section and download your checklist. Thank you for joining me. I will see you in the next video.